Goodness, we're late. Well, welcome everyone. Today, SCORE is going to bring you, SCORE Minnesota is going to bring you the fourth in our financial series, Can I Make Money? And isn't that one of the most important questions before you even start your business? Is it possible for me to make money? Building a financial pro forma forecast. We have two amazing presenters for you today, Steve Rogers and Joe, let me see if I get this one right, Anziano, sorry. I knew I wouldn't get it right. Although I'm a girl from New York, I should have gotten it. This is being brought to you, as I said, by SCORE. So let's kick that off with a little bit of background about SCORE. SCORE is a nationwide organization that is sponsored by the Small Business Administration, and we provide America's businesses with free, want to emphasize free, confidential business mentoring in all of our chapters. We at the Minnesota SCORE have almost 90 volunteers to help you with your trip, your voyage through the business creation process, wherever you are in that. Our chapter was recently recognized as a Diamond Chapter of Excellence, which is the highest award that they give. And since its founding in '64, SCORE has assisted over 11 million clients, which is an impressive number. We help you whether you're in your pre-startup, your startup phase, whether you're in business and you want to grow, or even if you're selling or closing a business. We have just scheduled an exit strategy seminar for the end of October, so you can put that on your calendar. Wherever you are in your business, you should apply for a SCORE mentor. It's going to help you be more successful in whatever aspect you're looking to do. I also want to point out our website, minnesota.score.org. This has amazing information. If you want to request a mentor, if you want to find a workshop, there will be a recording of this. This is being recorded and you will get it via email. But if you missed a webinar, go to our website and do a search for it and you'll find them there. You'll also be able to locate podcasts and other resources in our libraries. I think probably even some versions of this Pro Forma worksheet are available on it. So if you're looking for that, go to our minnesota.score.org website. So lastly, I want to thank our sponsors. Without these people, there would be no lights on and we probably wouldn't be here. The SBA does support us to an extent, but we need other financial assets, and these organizations are kind enough to support us. So to our speakers, I just want to say, Joe came to Florida in 2006 and started a print marketing business. And he has been manager and engineer with a number of organizations and ran a national franchise organization, and then spent the last 8 years as an entrepreneur with Advantage Print and Design. And he is a marketing partner for dozens of businesses in Manatee and Sarasota counties. Steve, you'll recognize from his accent, is not a native American. I think he might be a transplant, and perhaps you'll be able to figure out where he came from. He spent 25 years in the telecom industry before becoming a business consultant. In his 25 years, he's worked in Canada, Europe, Asia, and the US, raising to general manager of a $1 billion business. He started 5 new businesses in Maryland and volunteered as an advisor to state-funded early-stage businesses. Now he focuses on strategic planning, fundraising, raising funds, bringing products to market, managing cash and intellectual property. So without further ado, gentlemen, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Diane. Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve, and I'll give you a clue. Yes, I'm from England. I'm actually from Yorkshire in the north of England, so I hope you can understand me. Today, we're talking about building a financial pro forma forecast for your business. And as a result of this, I hope you will be able to answer the question, can I make money? I'll start with an overview of what a pro forma is and why you should have one. And later, Joe will look at creating one for a new business. So what is a pro forma? It's very confusing terminology, but it's Latin and means, amongst many things, as a matter of form. So it's a format. It's a format for presenting your business in financial terms, and it's focused on cash. It focuses on the incoming cash and the outgoing cash and what's the net result of that. It is not complicated by depreciation or amortization or any of the other complex things you should think about in a financial statement. So it is not a financial statement. It is your view, your prediction of the future. A financial statement requires you follow generally accepted accounting principles, and it's just a summary of history. It's not a view of the future. So just think of a pro forma as a format for looking at cash coming in and cash going out. Next slide, please, Diane. What does it look like? It looks like a spreadsheet. This is an example of a summary spreadsheet. The actual spreadsheet is more detailed, in depth than this. There are many worksheets behind this summary sheet, and that's what makes it difficult. Every business is different, and you need a certain amount of skill in using Microsoft Excel to assemble all the backup worksheets behind this summary. If you have those skills and you know how to enter formulae into an Excel spreadsheet, you'll be home to the races. But if you don't have those skills, SCORE is here to help you. And every business is different. So we will help you structure it. So why create a pro forma? A lender or an investor, when you go to the bank and ask for money, they'll want to see a pro forma because a pro forma is a format they are used to and can understand very quickly. If you put a pro forma in front of a banker, they'll immediately understand what you're going to do with their money and when will you pay me back and will you be able to pay me back. So it's a very short form way of them understanding your business from a cash viewpoint very quickly. If you're starting a new business, sorry, somebody's getting ahead of me, that's it. If you're starting a new business, consider yourself the investor. If you create a pure pro forma, how long will it take before you're going to start making money? And which products will make you successful? How will you be able to make payroll? It will teach you the reality of your view of the business and the risks you're going to face. If you're buying a business, usually you will be reviewing financial statements from the past, and buried in there can be all kinds of hidden detail. It's a good idea to sit down with the person you're buying the business from and look at a pro forma of the future and understand the strengths and weaknesses of that business. If you're already running a business, you've already invested in it, and a pro forma will help you understand how you could change your business model to improve your business. It also is useful for scenario planning, and we'll touch on that later. Next slide, please. So as I said, every business is unique, and it requires its own spreadsheet model. This is a difficult thing to do if it's your first time. And your SCORE mentor has access to subject matter experts such as Joe and myself to help put the spreadsheet together to fit your business model. One thing we will ask you for is to gather 6 areas of information before we sit down and start. So each of these 6 items I'm going to talk about now in detail, but if you follow this process, you will get to the answer quickly. So first one, define your products. Next slide, please. That's it. For each of your products, we need to know information about the selling price. How did you set your price? What will the market support? Are you being competitive with that price? If you have a dozen products, we need a dozen answers to a dozen different pricing strategies. What was the cost of the product? Did you make it? Did you buy it wholesale? Do you resell something? When you buy it wholesale, what did you pay? Is that the cost to get it in your stock room? Or did you have to pay transportation costs before it arrived in your stock room? If you're selling a service, what are your hourly rates for each different service? And who's providing that? Is it you, the owner, or do you have a staff of people from junior to senior, all with different hourly rates? And if you're producing a product, do you have to deliver it to the customer? So if the delivery charges are per customer, they have to be included in the cost of the product. How long goes on between getting an order and getting paid? Sometimes you might get an order in February, but you might not get paid for it until April. Holding that cost for 2 months can be very difficult for a very small business, especially in the early stages. And how many of each product will you sell per month? These are the product questions we'll have. Next slide, please, Diane. Next, what are your fixed costs? Fixed costs are costs you incur irrespective of sales volume. So if you're renting a workshop or a warehouse, for example, you're going to be paying those rental charges no matter whether you sell anything or not. It's a fixed cost you have to cover every month. Same with some employees. If you have a storefront business and a store clerk turns up in the morning, opens the door, waits for their first customer to walk in, you're paying that store clerk whether nobody walks in or 100 people walk in. It's a fixed cost. Utilities, insurance costs, bookkeepers and other professional services, loan payments and credit card payments. If you're buying a property, then the cost of buying it is capital. If you're paying a loan every month or a lease every month or a credit card payment every month, that's a fixed cost you have to cover. Next slide, please. More fixed costs, advertising and marketing. What are you paying for advertising and marketing campaigns before you open the doors? If you're a new business, you've got to have people ready and waiting and know you're in business. Advertising and marketing usually starts off as a very high cost, but as you acquire customers, you can reduce spending on that. And as time goes on, you then have to focus on customer retention. Once you've landed a customer, you have to keep that customer. Next slide, please. What are your variable costs? We talked about fixed costs, which are costs you will have whether you sell nothing or something. Variable costs are very dependent on sales volume. Variable costs are demand driven. What are the costs to get a product out of the door? Shipping, packaging, postage. Do you pay a commission? Do you pay referral fees? Do you have employees that only work when you've got an order? Do you have employees that you employ as seasonal workers? Do you have consumables that are only used for a particular service? So your variable costs vary according to the sales volume. Next slide, please. That's it. Capital spending. Capital is a major purchase that has a life. It's not consumables. Depreciation is not an issue here. If anyone talks to you about depreciation or amortization, it doesn't go into a pro forma. So for example, you buy a building, real estate, then the down payment the hundreds of thousands of dollars you pay up front is capital spending. The monthly mortgage payment goes in the fixed costs. What if you're a manufacturer? Do you have enough equipment to satisfy demand as the business grows? If you have a ramp in sales, will you have to buy more manufacturing equipment to keep up with demand? Also, vehicles. Did you buy a vehicle? Do you have to pay a loan each month? Did you have to pay a deposit on the vehicle? If you did, it's a capital expenditure. And it's always best in a small startup to rent rather than buy up front. It's less risky because you can always return the truck. Next slide, please. Inventory is the next subject. If you're starting a new business, think about how much inventory of supplies you will need prior to opening the doors. If you've got too much inventory, it means you've got cash tied up, sitting on a shelf somewhere, and you can't use that cash. If you've got too little inventory, then when demand rises, you might not be able to meet supply to your end users, to your customers. Also, if you're buying inventory, your suppliers will require cash or a credit card up front. They won't give you 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days to pay the bill. They'll want cash or a credit card before they even deliver. If you're buying a business, inspect the inventory, make sure it hasn't expired, and make sure it's useful for you and will it meet your needs going forward. If not, get rid of it. If you have a business, do you have inventory that's not moving? If it isn't moving, have a fire sale, get rid of it. It's just sitting there creating a problem for you. Next slide, please. And the final subject we'll ask you about for the Pro Forma is research and development. Will you be investing any money in new products to stay ahead of the competition? If you're in a technology industry or a technology product, there is a chance you can get grant funding. If you're in energy business, you might be able to get grant money from the government if you're saving energy or producing a new energy product. Development now pays off in the future, but it's a risk. It's very hard to predict the future and what the new demand is going to be for products, but it's an opportunity to be a disruptor and get a head start on your competition. Those are the areas I've covered. Next slide, please, that we will be asking you about when we come to help you create a Pro Forma. So I'm going to hand over to Joe now, who's going to talk about his fictitious new business, Happy Paws, and how his business would fill in a Pro Forma. Over to you, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Steve. That was a great overview of the Pro Forma, what a Pro Forma is, and it's equally important what it's not, how and when to use it, and the important parts to consider when building one. So now we're going to dive in. We're going to go from theory to practice. Let's dive in and build an actual Pro Forma using a specific example. And the example I chose is a business I've thought up. I've named it Happy Paws. I'm a dog lover, so I enjoy working around dogs. So I came up with this idea for a mobile pet washing and grooming service. Well, the idea is that I'm going to have a mobile van that's going to be fitted up with all the facilities to wash and groom a dog, and rack for merchandise, hopefully. So that'll be one set of services that I'm going to offer this business. The other set of services outside of the van, I'm going to come back. I'm going to do dog walking and pet sitting services. I know that these are services in demand, so I'm going to offer that. How I'm going to market and go forward, I plan. I'm not going to chase customers at their homes. So I have decided to contract with other pet supply stores that don't offer these services, and contract with them that I will park my van in front of their store on a rotating basis over a 6-day work week. Schedules will be published in this store and on my website. So people will come to me, and we'll be cross-referring back and forth to the store, to the van. And I'm hoping that this will make for a good, steady customer flow. So having presented that to Steve, he comes back and says, hey, Joe, that's great, but what are your labor costs? How are you going to run this thing? So for my labor costs, I envision 3 types of labor. The first is a full-time employee that will work in the van and will be paid for all the hours the van is operational. That'll be a fixed cost. She will be there whether we get customers or not. She will be part of that van. Remember, this van is what I consider my office. So that's a fixed cost. I mentioned dog walking and pet sitting services. Those will be serviced by variable cost labor. I've got 2 part-timers that will do the dog walking, will only get paid for the walk stay service. And I found a contracting pair that contract out their services for pet sitting, overnight sitting jobs. And they do that for a variety of services. So we'll deal with them on a contract 1099 basis. Again, variable costs, only get paid for what they do, or the sitting jobs they service. Next slide. So if we move on to the next slide, we're going to talk about the next aspect of the business that Steve asked me for, and that was capital investments. So what are my capital investments? Well, I intend to purchase the mobile van as I expressed, and the van will have enough room to do the dog washing in the back. And I think that's going to be about a $40,000 purchase of that vehicle, funded through monthly car payment loans. And I'm going to cover that with an awesome car wrap. We're going to look slick. And my estimates for that cost is $4,000. We're going to fit inside the back of that module. I found a supplier that has a module for washing and drying, and it's going to fit in, and they're going to fit that in. And I estimate that's going to be $10,000. Those last 2 costs, I'm going to pay on credit card, pay them back on from the proceeds of the business. And so my fixed costs incurred are the monthly car loan payments for the van, $600 over 5 years. And then the initial debt service on the $14,000 on my credit card. I'll pay that out monthly, hopefully pay that off 1 to 2 years. So those are fixed costs because that has to be paid whether I have business or not. Moving on to the next slide, we've got the last 2 examples of fixed costs, inventory and R&D. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to keep it simple here. I'm not planning on inventory, not for the first year. I don't want to get my money tied up. I don't really know how much inventory to carry. So I'm going to try to do it, buy as I go. In the future, it'll be more affordable to buy in bulk and carry the inventory, but I need a 1-year track record. And I'm not going to cover R&D in this first year. I'll have enough experience just getting what I've already identified into practice. And I'll leave setting up a more efficient system for year 2 and go forward, hopefully in an attempt to get more efficient. So there won't be an inventory and R&D covered in this example. If you have those situations, check with your mentor. They get quite involved, and but it's very worthwhile working for. So buckle up your seatbelts. The next slide, let's fill in the pro forma. The following slides, I'm going to say right up front, the following slides show data that's specific to Happy Paws. What I estimate as costs and cost categories. Your business will probably be very different. So consult your members for your specifics. But on the right-hand side of this slide, you're going to see, Diane, if we can move on. to building Pro Forma 1A. And we're going to see the entries I have planned for my admin fixed costs. Things like certification fees, legal fees, accounting fees. I put in an amount for office supplies. We're going to buy printer paper, pens, staplers, things like that. I put in $50 a month to cover that. Hopefully that will be, make sure you put some money in for that. You're going to be, those are the little things that, oops, I got to go out and buy. I have office equipment purchase cash, small items. So the items that 200 or less that you're going to pay cash for out of the proceeds of the business, you put in some money for that. Rent, I have no rent because I've got my van. Utilities, I have question marks because I don't really know what I'm going to be paying for water. The electricity will come from running the van, but I don't know where I'm going to be paying for water. So I have some question marks on that. Hopefully that won't put me out of the ballpark, you know. Yes. Diane, we're not up to speed on the slides. And Diane, can you hear me? Okay. And I don't have the slide numbers that you have, so I can't tell you which slide number to put on.
Sorry, I think my computer is frozen and my program is disintegrating before my very eyes.
Should I try?
Tell me what you should see on your screen.
Building Pro Forma 1A admin fixed cost. It's about 2 slides on for this. It may actually be the next slide on from this.
See, that's what I see on my screen.
And we're still looking at inventory and R&D. We're looking at 1 slide back. Okay, folks, it's worthwhile trying to get this ironed out.
In a second, let me see what I can.
All right. Oh, yes, I've been told I should blow on that to make sure it's coffee or tea. It is. I'll just talk on a little bit.
I can't bring the presentation.
I don't know what it'll work like if I share my screen. View slideshow. All right. Okay, which should I try to share my?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
helpful.
Okay. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Pro Forma Workshop. Okay, can you see my screens?
I actually can't see anything, so you'll have to ask someone else.
Okay, let me kill this. All right. So, Steve, can you see my screen? Can you see the Pro Forma?
I can see slide 22.
All right. So let's here's where we're going to buckle in, and I'll have to go a little bit quicker through this, but let's go. So we're going to start with fixed costs. I found it much more helpful to understand what your costs are, what your fixed costs are in your business, what it's going to cost you to open the doors. That's really helpful. Before we get to revenue, we need to know what we've got to deal with. So, you know, I've got my business license. That's $200 annually. I'll show it in the first month. I talked about the office supplies. I talked about my utility, and that's a question mark. Hopefully we're under control with that. Cell phone, 120 bucks. Insurance, I estimated $500 yearly. And uniforms, you know, nice sparkling smocks with my logo, and my walkers will have logo T-shirts. So we're going to look good, and I have to put that into the pro forma. My next set of admin fixed costs, I'm going to do debt. Remember, this is a cash flow model. I don't care about depreciation or anything like that. What's it going to cost me every month? And I told you $14,000 in credit card. So I estimate $250 a month. I'm going to pay off of that. I want to get that in under 2 years. My average interest is going to be about $33 a month. We got to keep track of that because that'll change every month. Trucks, well, I've got the van. So I've talked about the van. I'm going to have monthly vehicle payments, $600 over 5 years. I estimate monthly maintenance, and not worried about mileage. This is monthly maintenance, about 10,000 miles. It worked out to about 15 cents a mile based on my model. That's things like I'm going to have to do oil changes. I'm going to have to put gas. That engine's going to be running a lot. And I'll probably hit a flat or two down the road. So these are costs, again, every month. They got to be made, whether I have product or not. The last group of fixed admin costs that I want to cover is the fixed payroll. Okay, so I've got these categories, and I got to pay myself. So I'm estimating at start, I'm going to pay myself $5,000 a month and hope I'll be happy. So that's $5,000. That's an employee payroll figure, as we'll talk about. Then I've got the full-time employee that will be sitting in the van for 120 hours a month at $12 an hour. That comes out to $1,640, and then I've got an admin that I'm paying $100 a week. Do the basic accounting, accounts receivable, payroll, that type of thing. So I've got $5,000, $1,640, $400. That works out to about $7,400, I believe, in fixed payroll. Remember, these are employees. Company has to contribute to their FICA, Social Security, etc. taxes. I estimate that's about 7%. Check with your accountant for your business. That number may be slightly different, but in my experience, 7% has accounted as. So that's an additional $493 of payroll expense that I have to spend to support these employees. Again, my 1099 salaries are not fixed, and my part-timer is not a fixed cost. We'll cover that when we get into variable product costs. The last group of fixed costs I want to cover is marketing. Got to get customers in the door, and I got to retain them. So, you know, the list of usual characters, website SEO, social media ads, print marketing, trade, there are things like trade show expenses. You need to consider giveaways, samples, networking activities, customer reading expenses. For me, these are the figures I put in. You know, I put in about $350 to cover my first run of business cards and flyers, and that'll be variable across the year. You know, I'm looking at these costs for my e-marketing, and I've got giveaways, nice squishy bones with a logo on it. Looks good, make the customers feel good about my business. I've also considered joining a networking group, which is going to cost me $600 a month. I'm going to put it into my initial pro forma. I'm going to see if I can cover that. So I'm going to see if it flies. So that's my marketing costs, the cost, customer acquisition, and customer retention. Important. Don't ever skimp on that stuff. So here we are. Bottom line, this is a fixed cost. What we just talked about, I rolled it onto my pro forma. And here it is. We've got general admin costs and sales and marketing costs. And that you can see that all raised up. My operating costs range from $10,000 down to $88,000. Of course, there's some variance across across the year because of some are annual, semi-annual, whatever. I estimate my average operating expense is $9,700. That's important now because now I'm going to work on products. We got to get to revenue at some point. So we've got the fixed costs. We've got the $9,750 over an average month. Let's go on and start working on products. Yes, of course. Costs first. So for every product, I need to understand what it's going to cost me to put together, deliver, purchase. What is my cost of product? Before I can start working on revenue, I got to know what I've got to overcome. So I'm going to go through 3 examples. First one is dog washing. Now you notice here, fixed labor is not used for dog washes. Fixed labor only is used for dog washes. I'm sorry. I described my full-timer is going to be in the van and they're going to handle dog washes, whether they come in or not. So a dog wash will not cost me any additional labor costs. However, I do have some expendables. I've got some wash supplies, wash soaps. I'll have some laundering, get all that stuff nice and sanitized for the next dog. I estimate that's going to be about $15 per dog wash. So that's that. So now I've got my product 2 is dog walking service. No expendables to do a dog walk, but I do have salary. I'm going to pay my walkers $12, and they are employees, so I have to add in the burden rate set plus 7%. So I estimate my dog walking service cost. The cost to walk a dog to me is $12.84. The last one is the overnight pet watches. Again, no expendables, but I do have labor. These are 1099 contract workers. So I estimate that I'll pay them for 10 hours, $12 an hour. Since they're contract workers, I don't have to worry about anything about their payroll taxes. I don't have to contribute to their Social Security or FICA, and I don't even have to withhold. So 1099 is very nice if you can get it. The downside is there's no loyalty. They're not part of your company. So, those are the trade-offs. But anyway, $120 for that. So here I am. I've gone through that for all my 9 services. The first 3 I talked about, wash, walk, overnight. I've got some meds and some merchandising I'm going to try to do. And I've worked out the cost for each of those. And there's a 15, 1284, 128. I showed you the meds and all that. So there are costs associated with that. So now we have the fun. What are we going to be able to make as far as revenue? So we've got these 2 columns, and these are the 2 biggest knobs that you'll have on your pro forma. What can you charge for that service? And how many of that service will you do a month? So let's take the first one. I talked about dog wash. I have 120 hours a month in that van operation. My benchmark is about 45 minutes to wash a dog. So there's going to be inefficiency, blah, blah, blah. So out of that 120 hours, let's say we get 100 serviceable or chargeable dogs. That's pretty aggressive. There's not a lot of room for error there. And my benchmark that is a $60. So I think I can get $60 for a dog wash. That was my benchmarking. So I run that all out. I subtract, I do that. I subtract out merchant service fees. Don't forget merchant service fees. Someone will pay you credit card. I've got people that balk. I don't like paying 3.5%. But when you get that money up front and avoid accounts receivable, that's the best fee you're going to pay in the business. And so anyway, for that cost, cost efficiency, I got a 73% margin. I like that. That's pretty good. I skipped down to my overnights, and my overnights, these contract workers will maybe only get 8 per month out of that. $200, 38% margin. I might not be so excited about that. It's not a lot of revenue. I'm going to watch that one very closely. That's a service I'm going to really consider whether or not I keep or if I enhance it in any way. So then magic happens. We've got all the revenues. We've tweaked the buttons, quantity and price. Those are my 2 biggest buttons to tweak. And let's see, we met our goal. Remember our goal, we had $4,750 of expense. plus a measly 5,000 a month that I want to make, 9750, but we did come up with 10,006 in gross margin. So we made it over the line by 863. So was the profit goal met? Yeah, barely, but we made it. We had set aggressive goals. You know, 5,000 a month, $60,000 a year for me, after all this work, after all this expense, after all this risk. I don't know if I'm excited about that, but I can do it, I believe, on a steady state basis. If not, you know, I'm going to go back and I'm going to revisit my fixed costs. Maybe I knock out that networking group, you know, and look at my labor costs and adjust, or maybe I just adjust my expectations. So time to put it all together, rubber meets the road. Let's look at a 1-year projection. Okay, here we go. So putting it all together, here's a 1-year projection. I'm going to assume that I'm going to start with $10,000 cash in the bank. Remember, this is cash flow. I want you to operate this business, or the most successful way to do this is these are month-tight buckets. Cash does not, we are not putting any of the expenses shown here in this page on a credit card and not paying them off. We put it on a credit card, we pay it off. These are month-tight buckets of cash. So I started with 10,000 cash. You know, I got front-loaded in some of my expenses. You know, I've got 11,000 expenses. So I lost a little bit out of the month, but you know, it's the first month. I'm not overly concerned. So if I run this business at my steady state rate, 10,000, 10,000, 13,000, remember the 4, 4, 5 week rule. And if I hit 100% of my just shown goal, I'm going to come out with $27,000 over. So, I see. So, before we go any further, let's summarize how we got here. We first determined the fixed costs. What is it going to take to open up the business? Open the doors. We need to know that. Then we started working on products. We need really good detail on the products. How much does it cost us? What is it going to take to run a product? So now, once I know all my costs, my variable is revenue, unit price, and number of services. So I tweak those, you know, because I got my costs fixed. So now the next knobs I can work with those. And then I transfer all that sample month, remember, it was just a sample month, put that back into the yearly projection, and I look to see what it was like. So we did that. It looked pretty good, right? Disclaimer time. In this example, the business met its profit goal, but was that realistic? And can I really do 100 dog washes every single month? And I sell all the merchandise every single month. It shows what a mature business is, but you know, startup, hardly mature. So if I go back, to my pro forma, you know, I saw a $10,000 gross margin. Hey, suppose I only hit 25 to 50% revenue the first month. The equipment can break. My partner might not be providing the sales opportunities that I expected. My employee might get sick. My employee might not be well trained. There's a tons of reasons why the first month out the door, you're not going to be at 100%. So immediately I lose $5,000 to $6,000 out of this. $5,000 to $6,000, you know, ain't going to be minus 158 anymore. And suppose that carries on and takes up to 9 months to get up to 100%, whatever. We're not going to be profitable at the end of that year. First year, just, you know, let's be realistic. So how much, you need to determine how much cash you need to start to get to break even point. For many businesses, that'll be 2 to 5 years. Don't fool yourself. And so what would it take if it took you that long to get there? And that all depends on how big is your dream. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve.
Okay, thank you, Joe. We did have one question I saw on the chat asking to define margin. And for the person that asked that question, gross margin is the difference between your selling price and the cost of what you sold. So if you sell a pizza for $10 and it costs you $8 in materials and labor to make it, then 10 minus 8 is your margin. So the margin on a pizza would be $2. If it's $2 on $10, that's a 20% margin. In simple terms, hope that helps. So just finishing off, I mentioned scenario planning earlier on as a benefit of a pro forma. Your pro forma should be viewed as a living document. And if you had a pro forma 20 months ago before we started COVID shutdowns, you could have used your pro forma to run some quick scenarios about how to change prices, what happens if volumes change, what happens if product costs change, demand changes, how can you reduce operating costs. So you can, once you have a living document, we construct it so that you can change the assumptions in that document and understand what the end result will look like. So scenario planning is a very, very useful tool you can use the pro forma for. So next, please, you're controlling it now. So where's the score meant to come in? It's difficult. If it's daunting, if you've seen this for the first time, if you need a pro forma for your business, contact your mentor. If you don't have one, get one. And your score mentor will then bring in a subject matter expert such as myself and Joe, and we will help you put one together and teach you how to use it. You don't need to do this alone, as we've been saying. And last slide, please, Joe. Your pro forma is your forecast of expected cash flow results. When you execute your business plan, if you've done your homework and you've built it on reality and not on a dream, you will have a successful business. And always remember, hope is not a strategy. So that concludes the presentation. And I do not know if our moderator is still online. I have no idea if Diane has suffered a meltdown of her computer.
Doing well, Steve.
Oh, there's another question here. Thanks for explaining margin. Can it also be defined at profit? If not, why? So a margin is just the difference between what you sell the product for and what it costs you to make the product. You don't have a product, sorry, you don't have a profit until you've paid all the other bills Joe was talking about. The, you know, the variable costs, fixed costs, the rent on your building, the legal help, the bookkeeper, the utilities. After you've deducted all those, then you end up with a profit if you're lucky. Hope that helped. Diane is not there by the sounds of it. So I don't know if I'm looking at the chat. See if there are any other questions coming up. Someone asked about, yes, the recording is available. I believe the administrator will be sending out a link to this for all the attendees. So you should be able to get a hold of the link shortly. Next question, would you meet with someone in Naples? That's too far to drive for me and for Joe, but we may have a chapter in Naples. I don't know. Looks like Diane's trying to join in.
I am trying. I'm messing it up.
We work out of the Minnesota score chapter. Naples is a little too far away, but you should search and see if there's a chapter in your neighborhood. Someone questioned gross margin equals gross profit expressed as a percentage. Yes, you could use that definition, but gross margin really is in dollars and a percentage, but it's not a good idea to think of it as profit. Too many people think that money is profit that they can walk away with and put in the bank, and that creates problems.
Yeah, it's a matter of definitions, but Steve brings that. I have to tell you, I had the same questions, and Steve clarified that a lot to me. You know, margin is not profit. You could think of it as, on a micro scale, it's a profit, a gross profit on that product, but it's not profit in your product. It's not in your pocket until you've cleared all your expenses. So, you know,
sorry,
it's adjustment in thinking, but it's useful to think in those terms.
Question was, would the spreadsheet shown be made available? I don't know if you have a total spreadsheet package that you're willing to share, Joe, or whether these were just snapshots for illustration purposes.
I have this example. Those snapshots were off an actual spreadsheet. I did not want to fumble with the spreadsheet live in real time, so I just took snapshots. And that is an example of that particular business. I hesitate to just hand this out because it's a fairly complex set of questions and decisions that you make. When I work with a client, I will never just give them that blank worksheet. What I'll do is I'll meet with them first. We'll go through the homework questions, you know, your capital, you know, we'll get all the details. And then I will go ahead and modify the worksheet to fit their model. And then we'll have a discussion of it. And at that point, I have no problem handing that over to them once I know that they understand, you know, all the limitations. And we've actually made it relevant to their business. My concern is if you look at the raw blank spreadsheet, it's going to look like Japanese. And I'm sorry, I'm not a multilingual person.
Yeah, it's a dangerous thing to do, sorry, unless it's tailored for your business.
But if you work with a mentor, the mentor can customize it and modify it and build it for your use. And at that point, sure, take it over.
There was another question, would that work for a bistro where I'm sure that's a typo, tearing and building costs would be involved? Yes, you can structure a pro forma for any business. It can get extremely complicated, especially if you have customers that don't pay on time. If it's a long lead time product, say you're a cabinet maker and you get an order for kitchen cabinets, you take how much percentage up front and then you hand build all these cabinets and it takes you 3 months before you get paid. Building spreadsheets like that can be very complex, and it's essential.
I will make no bones about it. This was a very simple example. I built spreadsheets that, you know, if you get into inventory, you know, take a pizza shop or a bistro or something where you've got to order enough flour to last you for 3 or 4 months. You're carrying that cost in the back room. Those calculations are doable, but you need to keep your wits about you and understand how to handle that. So yes, this was a simple example because you know, we couldn't get through this in an hour if I started to deal with all the dozens of alternative scenarios. You get our main goal was to give you an idea of how to build it, what goes into it, and why it's useful and why it's very important for every business to understand their business at that level. But that is only a sample, and it's a medium-sized complexity because we went through different types of labor and stuff of that nature. It was a bite-sized chunk that we could fit into this 1-hour presentation. But many other scenarios can easily be can be handled with the right thought process. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so I think we've answered all the questions. I don't see any new ones coming up. Someone typed, look on minnesotascore.score.org. I'm assuming whoever typed that means that's where you can find the recording of this.
Okay.
minnesota.score.org.
Yes.
Okay. I think
Hey.
we'll call it a wrap. So sorry
And I'm
about.
just going to put the screen up. Anyone in a position or have any interest to give back, feel free to go to this website and volunteer. We're looking for people to help.
We apologize for the dysfunction in the slides, but hope you managed to follow along. So I'm going to leave the meeting now, and I hope Diane can terminate the meeting for everyone. Thanks, everyone.
All right, I think that's a wrap.
Bye-bye.
You'll be receiving these slides and the video as a follow-up, and you know, contact your SCORE mentor if you are interested in this tool. It's very worthwhile. With that, we're going to sign off and say thank you for joining us. Minnesota SCORE, look forward to working with you to help.